This episode is sponsored by Shutterstock.com with over 20 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips. Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. For 30% off your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use offer code GAMEBREAKER5. What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 144 of This Week in MMO. You're watching Gamebreaker. I'm Gary Gannon. Coming up on today's show, we've got a ton of WildStar info. The game is looking pretty good. Rift is going free to play, but it's far from roses and sunshine over at the Trion right now. All that and more, plus, of course, your viewer questions. But first, from Zam.com, editor-in-chief, it's Mr. Scott Hawks. How are you, sir?
I'm doing tremendously well. How are you?
Fantastic. As we record this show on an off day, a little Sunday. It's nice.
It feels quite relaxed. It feels quite, laid back.
It does. I agree. Watching some footy, a little football,
yes.
little MMO talk.
Liverpool win. I'm happy. I'm ready.
All right, let's just jump into it because we got tons of stuff to talk about. This is like, I feel like this is like the getting prepared for the WildStar show.
Got something in your eye there?
No, I don't.
Oh yeah? Okay.
Yep, maybe. So, check this out. WildStar just keeps sounding better and better. So this week, Gareth Harmer had a great interview. Gareth is one of your peeps, huh? Over at
Yes.
Zam. He's your main man. Is he your main WildStar
He's our
man?
senior contributing editor, who I like to put on WildStar stuff because he likes his WildStar stuff.
He likes the WildStar stuff?
Yes.
As he should. Well, it was a great interview. So it's over on Zam.com. There's a ton of info. Obviously, we can't cover it all in here, so you definitely want to go over to Zam.com and read that, but we are going to talk about a lot of it. A lot of it. So, tons of really cool info. First up, they're adding, get this, random elements to all of their dungeons. So, explain this to me, Scott. I mean, is it like alternate paths or different mobs? What do we actually know about the random elements?
Well, we've known for a while that in raids are going to have random elements, and what there is kind of plugins. So the example, Gareth did another interview we covered in February actually about the raiding concept for that. And what you have is they can like plug in things and plug them out and switch them around, and they do that every week for raids.
Every week?
For raids every week. So you're going to have like weekly world firsts. So imagine the example that was given, was it Mike Donatelli that time? The example that was given was, so you got a raid and you're used to this raid, and right, I'm going to go down this path and there's going to be mobs here and the boss. But at this time, when you get down there, they've removed some sections compared to last week, and now the steam shooting up that you're going to have to use all your sort of movement abilities to avoid and dodge around, so you can do your combat and stuff as well as have those. And then next week, that won't be there. There'll be something else instead, somewhere else that you've got to learn that mechanic for. And they said they're going to move that into dungeons as well.
And these random elements that they're talking about now actually change hourly, right? And they're server-wide.
In dungeons, yeah.
In dungeons, they're hourly. Why did they? Is there any more insight into why they went with that approach?
Well, to me, it's like what I'm going to use World of Warcraft as the. A lot of people associate this game with World of Warcraft in a lot of ways that don't make sense to me. But in this case, I'll use it as an example. World of Warcraft, you do say heroic dungeon. And you do it the first few times, and it's the same every time. And when you've learned it, it becomes that, as I talked about, like line dancing. Essentially, how good do you know the dungeon? It's not really interesting anymore. It's the one that's the least painful that you like to do the most. With this, what it means is that if you go to a dungeon, you can't absolutely guarantee you're going to know what's going to go on, and every time that adds interest to it. And it also means that you've got to know what you're doing generally with your character. You've got to know how to use your movement on the fly. Your movement abilities. You've got to know how to use them. You've got to know how to properly lay down your telegraphs and everything else, in conjunction with new things happening in the dungeon that perhaps wasn't there. Now, of course, it's not going to be limitless. It's not like you could run the thing 100 times and it would never be the same. That's not going to be the case.
Sure. I don't think many players would expect that.
It'll be varying it up enough for it to at least keep a lot of interest and have a lot of sort of freshness each time you go into it.
So there's an example that in the interview about a boss with 3 healing ads and making the fight extremely difficult, really just ramping it up, which then gives the players basically, I'd say, the choice of going to another dungeon and doing something else, or coming back in an hour to try their luck again. Do we know if players are going to actually have that information at the start of the dungeon?
That hasn't been really, as far as I know, that hasn't been clarified. So what you're saying is you go in and say, okay, this dungeon is the one where you get this kind of fight at the end rather than this other kind of. I kind of hope they don't do that. I understand why that. I understand why some players would say, hey, but I want to know if this is the fight that I like or not, because then I'll just walk in and say, oh, it's this one, and I'll come back in an hour, which is going to really make it annoying for groups. If you're just going to pick up group and you walk in and 2 people leave immediately because, oh, I don't like this boss, and leave. So I hope they don't. I hope that you find out when you get to it, personally.
I agree with you. I mean, you and I kind of sit on the same page with a lot of that stuff. We like the randomness. Yeah. We like the mystery. I think it adds a lot to the game, you know? We
like difficulty, too.
Yes, which we're going to talk about in a bit, and it gets really interesting. So Jeremy was insistent that when he talked about telegraphs here in the interview that they're actually going to make the game the opposite of easy mode. Because I think a lot of players have kind of seen the telegraph system and are immediately thinking like, oh, well, it's just telling me what to do, and now it's just going to become a game of, Simon Says kind of thing, and this is going to make it extremely easy. And I don't think that that's where the Carbine team is going with this. So Jeremy had this. He said the whole reason we do telegraphs, it's fun at low levels and all that, but really the reason that we've done it is so that the raid level and the dungeon level have strategy. You paint down on the battleground what the heck you're doing, and then your friends respond to it, and your enemies react to it. And so as we do more and more in PvP, as we do more and more in dungeons, it goes from being a cool add-on at the low levels to a really cool gameplay effect. Again, without really a ton of hands-on time, it's really hard to say if telegraphs are going to make things easy or they're going to make things more difficult. But this whole system sounds like it's actually giving the ability for Carbine to just go crazy with the mechanics.
And it sounds like they are. I know three of our staff at Zam have played it, and from some of the stories, it sounds like kind of like the dance floor from Saturday Night Fever, which makes me sound old. But basically, you've got lots of colours around the floor, and it's hectic. And you need to really need to have a lot of raid awareness, a lot of positional awareness, and the way that the sort of classes synergize together, and the way that those telegraphs become important, not as said, not just as in sort of positioning, but also as in imparting information on the rest of your raid. So you immediately see from those signifiers what you're doing and how they need to react to that. What it actually does is it means that they can make more difficult fights because you're being given the information very palpably for what is going on. So they haven't got to soften things to give you that leeway in, oh, what's about to happen now, I'm not sure, and you're getting crushed. They say, no, look, here's what's going to happen. You see everything that's happening in the fight. That means that they can add more complexity and more speed and timing to it, because all the information you need is going to be there visually, and it's down to you to respond to it. And they have not got a problem with you not being very good at that and getting your face plowed into the ground.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people are assuming, that since they're telling you the information, that it immediately means it's going to be easy mode. I mean, I don't think it's not going to be like, Dance Dance Revolution of like, well, to some extent a little bit of a dance, but it's a little bit more intricate because it's not just like see a right arrow, hit the right key button once, and then move on to the next thing. Not even close.
Yeah, well, it might be
right?
Dance Dance Revolution, but it's going to be like the Dance Dance Revolution you see in Korean arcades, where those kids like feet are blurring all over the place, and it makes you dizzy. It's not the left step, right step rubbish, basically. So, yeah.
What do you think? So, what do you think it's going to be like at low levels? I mean, you think is it pretty much set up to be like sort of tutorial-esque, and I would assume, hopefully, it doesn't give people in the early levels, they take it with a grain of salt and don't realize that that's not what it's going to be like at higher levels. That it's they don't want to give people the wrong impression at early levels, I guess is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. I think you're going to see some challenging stuff pretty much through the game. I mean, the open world, from what I've seen, the open world and the sort of basic combat with some of the mobs you're going to see wandering around, and some of the actually quite impressive, like big stuff that you're going to see, which is just sort of standard mobs that also have a complexity to their mechanics to get you used to having to move around, the sort of like almost skill shot sort of positioning with some of your abilities to lay down your sort of damage and so on. That's going to be your real sort of training ground, and then progressively more in dungeons. That should be the sort of learning curve. But it's not going to be a case of, I don't think it's going to be a case of you just walk into a dungeon and you can just, fall over the finish line accidentally. You're going to have to work at it.
Next up, Jeremy talked about mentoring and rallying, two brand new systems. He says, if you want to be the high level guy in the dungeon and just trivialize it for everybody, being a badass and burning your way through, you can. That's actually a reasonable way to get item drops and things like that. But if you want to get the full quest credit, or if you want to get the experience points for having done so, what you can do is mentor a group or rally down to the dungeon level. This sounds awesome. Again, really good to hear about this. I think this is like almost kind of something that's, I don't want to say this is expected in a modern day MMO, but I like this approach that, especially like they're not just forcing you to do it one way. They give you the option of wiping the dungeon out at max level. They're giving you the option to mentor. They're actually, they're just giving you multiple options about different play styles because people play MMOs completely different.
The kind of standard has become an either or. Either you're at the level, you have to be at the level, or you're in game where it doesn't matter what level. If you're beyond that level, it will automatically make you the correct level. So with this, you can do either. You can either, and what it is, it's looking at how people actually play MMOs. And a lot of people in previous MMOs, when they're max level, you'll see them going into smaller dungeons to either finish achievements, to go after rare drops, like mounts or something like that, or even just for farming, materials for trade skilling, or doing stuff with also helping lower level people who want to put their low level characters through a dungeon but need help, and say, hey, can you come and help? And they'll just go and obliterate the dungeon for them.
It really
people do that in MMOs. And
yes,
so to have that available means that they're looking at how people actually play the game rather than the way they want people to play it.
And that almost seems like it's like an internal mantra almost about the way the whole game, even outside of the path system, everything. It feels like they're really looking at how people actually play the games in different ways and not forcing you down one specific path and play style, which is always kind of a tough and weird thing for MMOs, right? Because and that's kind of like even in newer single player PC games, like Dishonored and things like that, they're trying to do the same thing where they're not just trying to make hey, we've made a stealth game. They're trying to give players options now to play games completely the way you want to, and it sounds like they're really doing a lot of cool stuff for it. Get it.
It does. And what it is, I mean, the reason it's difficult is because it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of development hours to make sure you've got all those different options and content streams within the game. So sometimes what MMOs will do, will try and sort of make a game where those are kind of there, so it's open to you, but in a kind of amorphous way. Whereas it seems in WildStar, it's going, okay, we've got all these different types of players. We're going to have, right, if you want to be an explorer and you want to go that path, right, you're going to be able to find places that other people can't. So we've got to make those places. We've got to have that access. We've got to think of that system and so on. And then all the different sort of paths. So it takes a lot of work. That's why some MMOs don't do it that way. And just kind of make that part of, sort of have the open world as seen a way for you to sort of foist your play style upon it, Rather with this, they're looking at the playstyles available, then creating content and branches for you to specifically access for that, which is really cool.
And you mentioned the open world, and that's something I want to point out to everybody listening, is that mentoring isn't just for dungeons. It's also for parties that are out in the open world. So another good addition. And I'm watching, there's some people in the chat room saying, it sounds like some similarities to Guild Wars 2, right? Which there are some similarities, but this is definitely taking it, I think, to a next level. And mentoring requires, you to be a party with a low level player and all that. But,
but it's a choice, is the thing. It's like, the main thing is a choice. Like,
it's not down leveling everyone in the zone automatically. If Guild Wars 2 is just automatically down level.
Yeah, if you go to level the first dungeon, if you're a level 8 and you go to the first dungeon, you're fighting at that rank. Even though you got some extra powers and so on, you're still fighting basically at that rank. What WildStar just says, you can do that, or you can go in as a level 80 and basically rip the entire thing apart like it's rice paper. If you want to, it's up to you. But you're not going to get the same sort of bonuses and this sort of completion stuff if you go through as a max level as you would going through at that rank.
Options. We heard about a 10v10 battleground for the first time ever. Capture the flag, good to know. They'll have that. But I think pretty standard stuff. And on the arena side of things, check this out. I love this. This is awesome. This just made me chuckle as soon as I read this. If you're in an arena and you stealth and try and hide forever, fans in quotes, in the stands will throw beer cans at you, which may just be the greatest mechanic ever created.
I want to have a pack that you can purchase where you can get tomatoes as well.
Now, here's the thing. Here's the big question. We don't really know this, right? I mean, the first thing I thought of was probably going to be automated NPCs. But do we really know? Do we know for sure? I mean, it'd be great if you could actually spectate arena matches like this and actually get beer cans and start throwing them at players. That'd be amazing.
I don't think it will be so, because spectator mode isn't set to be in at launch. That's a post-launch. Thing, I believe. Jeremy Gaffney said that very recently. So I don't think it is. That would be, if we could eventually do that, that would be great. Could you imagine just large crowds spectating big matches and just beer can? You could have beer cans and rotten fruit and veg, or flowers and stuff for people who do great at the end. So at the end you do a ranking. So there you can have two people standing there either covered in beer and rotten tomatoes, or flowers and all the rest of it. I
mean, go back to World of Warcraft. I mean, people would sit and watch duels outside of Orgrimmar for years, right? So there's no reason that people. I think people would definitely watch this stuff, and that would add a great element. So hopefully, when spectator mode goes in,
it's just another opportunity for you to grieve someone.
Oh, isn't it true? You know me so well. All right. Check this out. WildStar's Modable UI. It's already in full swing. Who knew? 6 hours after closed beta test 1 begins, the first player-created add-ons were already coming out. Yeah. So this is awesome for fans who are you a fan of add-ons? Do you like add-ons?
Yeah, definitely. I like the fact that the players can bring the way they want to play the game into the game themselves. I think that's just smart.
I agree. I mean, a lot of games shy away from them and don't really want you to have them, but I like that WildStar's taking that approach of just letting the players do what they want to some extent. What are you thinking about? I don't know. I mean, WildStar isn't a WoW clone, but are you getting the impression that the Carbine are making sure things like that WoW players have become used to and sort of consider standard, that they've actually got them in the game right at launch?
What I would say is yes. I think that it's not. I don't think it's a WoW clone at all. It's got a completely distinct sort of personality. I think the main reason a lot of people say WoW clone is they look at it because it's the graphical style isn't sort of a realistic thing. It's not
a photorealistic style, but it's very stylized. Yeah.
It's very stylized, but it's not WoW stylized. You know what I mean? That's like saying that Pixar and Bugs Bunny is the same thing. It is different, and it's got a very different feel, tone, personality, and everything else to it. Also, what I would say is though that the sort of old school MMO players who that WoW also try to appeal to. Now, they want to appeal to first with WoW. Of course, those players have been around before then. So WoW was appealing to, I mean, if you remember, Tigol and Faror came from large raids before WoW, and that kind of raid style was something that WoW was trying to make sure was in its game as it developed along. So it's not like WoW created this play style. So having things like that kind of competitive raiding, and what I would say is it takes that competitive raiding and competitive PvE edge another step forward with things like leaderboards and the way that it's really being good at that sort of thing rewarded in different ways. So I think it's definitely there for, and let's face it, WoW's still got like over 8 million players, and it used to have 12. So if you could just get 4 million players who used to really love WoW and go, oh, WildStar's got a lot of stuff that I really used to like about the old WoW, I'll go there. You're probably doing something right.
Probably going to be okay.
Yeah. If you're not making a WoW clone, having the aspects in it that WoW players would like is just sort of makes sense, doesn't it?
Now check this out. This is huge. I know you're going to love this. A worldwide system for guilds to compete with each other week by week. So random dynamic elements will be pushed out to servers for guilds around the world to take down. Here's a quote from Jeremy. He said this. He said, our goal is to make them tough as hell. We're really aiming this towards the hardcore raider and not to do a Care Bear raiding fashion. You've got to be good to handle the raids.
Yay!
So are we talking full on raids here?
Yes.
Full on, not any
Full
kind of
on.
open world dynamic content?
Well, doesn't mean there isn't any of that, but we're talking 20 man, 40 man. 20 man and 40 man gonna kick your teeth in if you don't take it seriously raids, which might mean you'd have to be in a guild to do them properly. And like the dungeons,
imagine
it might be advantageous to play with people who know how to play and that you know how they play. Huh?
Now, do we have a clearer picture on all of this? I mean, how is this different from a regular raid? You know, what's changing each week? What's going on? Do we know?
Well, I mean, I talked about the actual physical dimensions of the physical approach to the raid can change week to week. Then, I mean, they can change whatever they want, really. I mean, you're going to have to... The main thing is, each week, there's going to be at least something about a mechanic or the physical layout or whatever that you're going to have to adapt to, that you're going to have to show. So it's not just going to be you've learned that fight better than anyone. It's going to be you can play your class better or raid in an organized way better than the others. So in a lot of ways, it actually makes the sort of competitive PvE of WildStar, like, it really focused on skill more than anything else. I mean, eventually it'll come to people will learn each of the raid sort of like setups, one would think, depending on how the sort of combinations they could do. You could have like a physical, you could have different types of adjustments, so like a physical layout adjustment, a mechanic adjustment, and then like a mob population adjustment, and then all those different combinations of that could really mix things up for a long time. But you're eventually going to learn them. However, especially to start with, and making you have to adapt to different circumstances within a raid, it means you're going to have to be good at actually playing your class, at actually knowing how to organize yourself and work within a team. Which, again, I want like MMOs to be out there that offer this. I'm not saying everyone has to be like it, but it's good to have MMOs that do this.
It's funny, I'm keeping an eye on chat room while we're doing the show, and I'm watching, and somebody brought up something in chat, which I was just going to talk about next, and it was kind of interesting. It sounds like, they really want to make a key part of this, the sort of the focus on the PvE competitive nature for top-end guilds and that area. And we just had Trekkie on from Method on Legendary on last week, who is, one of the top guilds in the world. And it's actually a really fascinating conversation like we had, and I actually want to do follow up with him and talk more about like what these guys go through to be at that top tier PvE.
It's incredible.
It's incredible. It's incredible. But I really, some of the questions I was asking about, like, why do you do it, and this, that, and the other. Are you hoping that Blizzard kind of pays more attention to, the progression side of things, and it becomes more of a forefront thing. And I wonder if there's a really large audience here that could kind of WildStar could kind of step in and swoop a lot of these guys out, and maybe possibly come over to WildStar to go for the competitive PvE ladder system. If all these things are in place, like leaderboards and weekly achievements and all that kind of stuff, it's not something that we've really seen another MMO that I can think of really pay attention to.
Not as much as this, and it means with those, what happens with those raiding guilds is basically they get in a cycle for each expansion. So the new expansion comes out, they've been probably playing the beta for it incessantly for 24 hours a day to hone it. Then the expansion comes out, and they break their necks on it for like first couple of months at most. Usually before then, they've pretty much nailed it and got most of the achievements that they want, and people have got like top of server like for gear and the rest of it. Like, so at most a couple of months. Then after that, pretty much the game's dead to them. With this, a weekly table, a weekly refresh of this challenge to become the top, a weekly, you know what I mean? You've got a non-stop PvE cycle of competitiveness going on all the time. So for guilds like that uptime and downtime, and like the game becoming not interesting to them, they should have at least have a much longer cycle of that with WildStar than they would with virtually any other MMO that's out there.
Hopefully we get some more information on this very soon, because I think this is a huge thing they could be onto here. Next up, we raved about this before. WildStar's housing system looks fantastic. We've talked about how plenty of times on the show how cool this looks, but check this out. Out in the open world, you're gonna find a treasure map. And it's actually going to lead you to a location that's on your housing island. So on your island. And the given example was a mob-infested cave would open up, and you and your friends would clear it. And then at that time, it would unlock a temporary mine for like the next week for you to harvest.
Sounds right. It makes your house... It makes the open world interact with your house. So you're actually going to maybe be going out into the open world to find stuff for your house. And that doesn't include, like, what was it? There's 18 parts in the world to go and find to be able to eventually build a helicopter hangar for your war plot. So that's another thing. But like, it takes you out into the open world to get something for your house. Then it makes your house into something where it's not just sitting there and looking pretty. You're
it's
actually
useful.
doing things with it. Yeah, so that's good. I don't see a downside to this, to be honest. It just sounds really good.
All right, I want to move on and talk about some controversial topics like flying mounts. But first, I want to tell you guys about audible.com. If you guys have not checked this out, I want you to try it out today. Just go to audible.com/gamebreaker. You can sign up. You're going to get a free 30-day trial, and we're going to get you a free audiobook just by using that URL. If you guys have not checked it out, I'll talk a lot about WildStar. I don't think WildStar has any novels yet, but
give it time.
Give it time. World of Warcraft does, and even if you're not even playing Warcraft right now, man, these books are awesome. And Audible's got 3 of them up. You've got Tides of War, Storm Rage, and Wolfheart all up on Audible right now. You can be listening to one of these today just by using the URL audible.com/gamebreaker. That's all you got to do. Just go over there. You've heard me talk about it before. You download the app, you put it on your smartphone, your iPad, your iPhone, whatever you got there, your Android. Put the app on there and you listen to audiobooks, because who has time to read books? I know I don't. I listen to them.
I'm on my second of the Game of Thrones books.
Excellent. How long is that one? Like 60 hours?
39, is it?
39 hours?
Yeah.
It's just a
week.
Just a week. It's a fantastic one, though.
Yeah.
It's a great one to listen to. It's a great voice. Check it out. Go on over today. Sign up. Get your free 30-day trial. Get a free audiobook. Just use audible.com/gamebreaker. All right, let's talk about the controversial topic that everyone loves to talk about. Yes, flying mounts. Flying mounts. Everybody's got an opinion on this one, and they've been brought up. So basically, we do know Carbine have said that they have the technology to do it. It's been very, very possible from very early on in the game. But Jeremy had something to say about it. He said, he said, there's a very interesting debate that's arisen over time since we added that 4 years ago about whether you should really have flying mounts in your game or does it trivialize too much of the content? He says, so what we're doing right now is listening to the community and figuring out if we want to launch with flying mounts or put some restrictions on them. If you have a little spaceship, you can fly around. Does it have a gas tank so you can't fly infinitely? We're not sure. We're actually listening to the community pretty strongly on this one. Where do you stand on this? Where do you stand on this? Where do you stand on the whole flying mount thing? Because there's arguments. There's very, very, very good arguments on both sides of the fence.
I think, and the very valid ones on both sides too. I think if you're going to have flying mounts, it's got to be in the game from the ground up. You've got to build the game with flying mounts in your mind as you're designing the whole damn thing. Because if not, the amount of problems it causes when it causes, for one, I can now make a lot of my PvP stuff kind of worthless because I can just drop out the air on top of people, and that's a big pain. I've got to try and solve that somehow. I can access things now that is going to cause a problem. For the Explorer path, that's trouble because when I'm doing some of the sort of anti-gravity areas and I'm doing double jumps on jump up puzzles to find places, well, now I can just fly there instead. And the other thing is that what the mistake that that some MMOs have made is they equate flying mounts to, well, I can fly, but now I should be able to move faster too, and it makes basically your world map trivial. So for me, if you're going to have a flying mount, it should be to get you somewhere specific that you need a flying mount for, and that has to be designed in the game to start with.
So are you saying more somewhat predefined, almost, flight path kind of situations? I mean, then players don't like that because it feels very restrictive, right?
No, not quite. That's the thing. It's not quite that. But what I'd say is this: if you're going to have a flying mount, it should not basically make traveling across the entire world something that makes the world.
We need restricted airspace. Restricted airspace.
It doesn't even have to be. It might even be just that it's just slow. So you just don't want to travel across the whole world because you might be able to fly, but you're not going very quickly doing it. So you actually be quicker along the ground. You don't have to do it just as in there are certain areas you can't go. But the problem is if you don't design the game from the ground up with flying mounts in mind, you have to do that because you're going to have content that a flying mount just completely destroys, basically. And then how do you solve it? You have no fly zones, and then it starts getting a bit arbitrary. And,
but if you have some areas that are kind of restricted airspace, you have no fly zones. And then the other thing is, you could make, there's always, like I said, there's arguments on both sides of the fence, but a lot of people don't want to have flying areas open from the start. So, and like in WoW, they kind of would open things up after the fact and things like that. Maybe I don't know. Maybe there's probably people probably find a way around it. I'm working this out of my head. I'm like,
it always just felt a bit like immersion breaking to me because it's like, well, you can't fly now at this point because we don't want you to be able to fly there. There's no real reason other than, well, if you can fly there right now, it kind of makes our content a bit rubbish.
Well, and that's the other thing. So do you make it sort of? Do you add some sort of completionist mechanic to it, where you have to complete 80% of the zone and the quests, and then you can all of a sudden a flight control monitor person NPC appears, and you can get your flight path certificate of flying in that area, and now you are allowed to fly through that area. Because I think what most people do.
If you do that, is a case of, okay, now that you've done that much, you're going to trivialize the size of your world, so now that's okay.
No, I know that's what I'm saying is, but that's the thing is, if you open it up in the right from the start, what a lot of players hate about it is the fact that everybody ends up in the sky and then nobody runs into each other, and the world doesn't even feel it feels kind of lifeless because it's everybody's just flying around and we're all separated, and it's just too much space to be kind of maneuvering around it. So
exactly, that's why you have to design the game from the ground up with it in mind. Because if not, and then what you do is you either that or you just start coming up with mechanics that are fun to sort of discourage people from flying in areas like, I don't know, anti-aircraft turrets and stuff, especially around war plots, because they're already going to have those anyway. So if you're going to have that in the game already, you could have that. There's a lot of stuff you can do. It's just, for me, it just creates quite a few problems, and it creates problems for content. It creates problems for specific content in that flying mounts can just break certain parts of your world because you don't want people to be able to fly to it. It can create problems in, I mean, one of the things that Jeremy Gaffney says is that they're going to have to, if they put them in, they've then got to have to take a complete relook at the world. I mean, that's what happened with World of Warcraft. They realised that with flying mounts they had to redesign Stormwind because half of Stormwind was an optical illusion. And as soon as you got into the air, it destroyed the optical illusion. So they had to redesign it to make it so it didn't look terrible as soon as you got up in the air. And that's Jeremy Gaffney says that's one of the things they've got to look at, is to make sure that if they do the flying mounts, that the world doesn't look bad because you're on a flying mount now. So there's so many small like problems that it causes that just saying, oh no, you can fly in the air, it's nowhere near that easy. So to me, if you're going to fly mounts, it's an option, but it's one that you've got to have answers for us from the sort of building block level of your game. Of we're going to go with flying mounts, and so this is going to make our world change, and even the sort of like design of our content change because of it. As long as you're aware of that and you build systems for that, that's fine. But kind of throwing it in halfway through really sort of can cause problems.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like the listening to the community on this one and try and actually figure out from some of the data of how people are playing the game is going to be interesting. So the whole idea of, the flying house islands and flying mounts seems to go together really well. It's actually pretty, you know what? I'd love to, leave a comment below. I'd love to know what the community out there thinks and where you sit on flying mounts, because I know everybody's got an opinion on this one because there's pros and cons to it. So leave a comment below. Let us know. What do you think? Do you think WildStar should have unrestricted flying mounts, or just, flying mounts in general, or are you against them for content reasons? Leave a comment. So, write it up. Let's just hear it. All right, so let's move on. Trion, the company behind Defiance and Rift. We've got some very good news. We've got some very bad news. First up, the good news. Let's talk about the good news. Defiance, the post-apocalyptic MMO shooter that also has a television show on Sci-Fi. The television show has been picked up for a second season on Sci-Fi, so very good news for the fans of the game and of the show. Going to get a second season. Better news.
I've actually watched some more to try and see if I can get past the pilot. I watched the first 4 or 5 episodes. I think it actually there are actually episodes that are better than the pilot. It does get better, I have to say. So
stick with it. Hang in there.
It's not. Yeah, I thought the pilot was pretty tragic, but it's actually not. It's not too bad. It's all right.
So better news on the front. There's a lot of people probably be really excited to hear this. Rift is actually going free to play. Finally, I think everybody's been waiting for this. Creative director Bill Fisher, I think, sat down and spoke to somebody by the name of Scott Hawks.
Some weird bloke.
Some bloke called Scott Hawks. Kind of runs
some
Sam.com site. Yeah, you sat down with him, Scott, and he had this to say. He said, there is no difference in content availability for subscribers versus free players. Everyone has access to all of the content. There are differences between veteran players that have previously subscribed to Rift and brand new players, however. He says a veteran player has access to everything they ever had, while new users will start with less storage space and less convenience features such as additional role slots. A new user can unlock these features via the Rift store. And so from that quote, it sounds like veteran players, even if they go free, are going to be treated quite well.
They're going to get some bonuses. Yeah, they're going to get some. You're going to get some bonuses, and if you're somebody, just say there's a difference. If you're somebody who just subscribe month to month, you're going to get a few bonuses. Let me just check on that. You're going to get, I think, like in the credit store, you're going to get a percentage. You might be able to get a percentage off bonus. You're going to get an in-game, like some in-game items worth a few dollars, sort of thing like that. So you're going to get something. So it's not like. So it's going to say, hey, thank you for playing with us up until now. We're going free to play, and we're going to make sure that we recognize the fact that you were one of the folks who was with us.
Which is great. I think the best news out of it so far is that they're not going to be splitting up content between subscribers and free to play. Oh, players.
Thank God.
Thank God.
That's always the worry. That's the worry.
That is
when
the
you're
worry.
Free to play, you're like, oh God, they're gonna make you have to pay to go and do that dungeon, aren't they? Or they're gonna.
I mean, so far it looks like they're doing it right as far as like looking at their free to play system. It looks really solid.
It does. Let's face it. What to me the fear as soon as they were free to play was as soon as I heard they were going free to play, which like don't say anything going free to play. It was like I hope they don't make Dimensions
Ah,
something else. Like, you know,
right.
you're going to have to pay credits for that. Then I was like, oh, no, that would be bad. But no, so yeah, you can do anything that anybody else can, which is cool.
Now,
How about you?
on to the bad news, because there is some very bad news this week. So, massive layoffs have taken place at Trion. First of all, you know, it's awful for employees and families affected. Hopefully, everybody bounces back and finds work. We are hearing some good things about the people being let go. So, we're hearing about severances and 60 days to look for work. Originally, IGN had posted 80% layoffs was the number actually reported. I don't know. Trion came back with their statement and said that was grossly exaggerated.
Yes, I got in touch with Trion myself and said, "Hey, what's the score?" And they come back and said, "Could you please look at your article because IGN were wrong in stating that, and they largely over exaggerated when they said it could be as much as over half the staff that said it's not there at all." And there'd been initial rumors that, like, you know, people weren't getting severance and things like that, and it just wasn't true.
Yeah, there's all kinds of rumors
still not good
and
news,
false statements. Yeah, still not good news, but there's all kinds of false statements and craziness being thrown all around. Their official statement was to best position Trion in a rapidly changing industry, we have reorganized our teams and are expanding our free-to-play offering. With Defiance, we delivered a great game that more than 1 million gamers registered to play and continue to enjoy. As we progress from launch...
that million registered.
You don't like that statement?
That statement makes me itch a little. Let's see. We have 1 million gamers registered to play, and that doesn't really mean anything.
No, it doesn't. But it's not.
I mean, it's like Defiance is a game that's got its problems, and I mean they're working so hard to try and fix it, and it's better than it. I mean, it's better than it was at launch. I mean, a lot of the issues have been fixed at launch, but it's a game that's launched with some problems, and so that's just a fact. It is.
They go on with the official statement saying, as we progress from launch to ongoing development of the game, we are adjusting our staffing levels to deliver new content and improved features. Rift and our other titles in development were unaffected by these changes. We are very much looking forward to the free-to-play release of Rift and are excited by the other new titles currently in development. Now, the scary thing is here, we are hearing that the Defiance team has been hit the hardest by these layoffs. Now, on one hand, you can immediately say, kind of be a little bit worrisome here that Defiance just launched. It could be in trouble. But we have seen time and time again restructuring of games post-launch. Once they launch, the teams do have to restructure and kind of change a lot of how they do. But I don't know. It is really close to after launch. This one seems to come, usually we see it like, I don't know, just throwing a number out there, but it's like a year out or something. Restructuring happens. This is
maybe not quite that far out, but yeah, usually it depends. I mean, usually when you go to launch, you keep a lot of people around to make sure, like, especially if you've got that initial rush, there's a lot of things going on that perhaps you didn't foresee. You've got a lot of systems that need a lot of maintenance, especially before you can have them ticking along nicely, I guess. But it does seem that there would have been layoffs anyway, because there's a big difference between pre-launch and post-launch on an MMO. There just is. A lot of the sort of design work that you don't need as much. I mean, like ArenaNet did a great job in regards to that because they made their live team so important. And from, as you can see from like the sort of constant updates and the way the sort of living story influences the game, because they go for a very different model, particularly with revenue. The way they did that means that they need to keep a lot of those same people post-launch. But not many MMOs go that route. A lot of time MMOs will shed people after launch. But yeah, usually it's maybe not this quick.
What's your guess on the future of how Trion is as a studio? Do you think, because they're going to be releasing ArcAge and publishing ArcAge and that sort of thing, do you think with Rift now going free to play, do you think that there might be a shift almost across the board that they go to that model? completely?
I mean, I'd be surprised, not just because of Trion, but because of the market itself. If they were working on a AAA subscription MMO at the moment. Um, I mean, they're also looking, and also the move to Arcade. I mean, I know they're helping with Excel Games on the development of it, in the making sure that it's not going to be a game that's complete, and then they try and do a localization of the text and they try and make it a game. They are actually involved with Excel Games in making sure there is going to be a game that should cross over well into the Western market. Um, but perhaps like SOE lately has done a lot of looking at games from China and Korea, seeing what they can basically pick up and then publish in the West. That might be something we'll see, like as Arcade being one of them. Something that Trion does more and more, rather than just producing and developing games as their main focus. That might,
Yeah, we can't forget about Warface. We've heard Warface can be free to play as well. End of Nations has been very quiet right now while they kind of work out some kinks, so we don't really know what the status on End of Nations is. So, going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Definitely going to be interesting to see, what's going on with the Defiance within the next 6 months and how that all plays out.
We can just take it off. I mean, we can take it off face value. They say that the rest of the teams working on the other games that they've got in development have not been affected. So hopefully that's okay. I mean, especially I think I saw somebody said, "Oh no, that might mean Arcade isn't going to happen." I mean, I'd be hugely doubtful it would have much effect on Arcade, simply because like those sort of deals, that sort of like publishing deal would already be in place. That sort of team would already be there and be working with Excel Games as it is already to get that going. So I'd be very much surprised if what happened was to affect that game's release.
Yeah, that sounds much more like an internal restructuring of what's currently going on. But I don't think Trion is in any way, shape, or form in a very bad place. So I'm sure they're fine as far as the studio goes. I mean, it's just internal restructuring, and it hits a lot of the people on the ground floor, which is always unfortunate. But I don't think this is going to affect Arcade.
The company's got a lot of respect. Like Rift's a really solid game. And it's had a lot of respect. So even a lot of players who don't play Rift. I mean, I haven't played Rift extensively, but it's a good game, and I've got a lot of time for Trion, and I think they do they do good work. And so even with Defiance, which isn't my favorite game, and I think there's quite a few problems with it, you can see what they were trying to do, and you can see the sort of effort they're putting in. It's just always a shame when people in the industry, when it's a tough time in the industry. We've seen a lot of people laid off from various companies, like big names in the industry in the last year to 2 years. So it's just unfortunate when this kind of story happens again, and you got to cover it. But yeah, I mean, we don't really know how many people have been affected. It just seems like Defiance is the area, although a lot you would think that was going to happen with quite a few people anyway. It seems that it just seems that like it's an unfortunate thing, and hopefully those people move on to other projects very soon.
All right, last up really quick today before we do some viewer questions, I just want to throw this out there as a quick hit. Final Fantasy XIV will be releasing this summer on both PC and PS3. So the actual date is going to be announced at the end of this month. Are you psyched? My interest has grown. I'm psyched again about Final Fantasy XIV.
I'm looking forward to playing it. I actually know when I might actually be doing that. So I'm looking forward to playing it. And from what I've been told is this. It is like light years ahead of the original incarnation of Final Fantasy XIV. So for fans of Final Fantasy XIV as it was, they're going to be absolutely blown away and ecstatic. And people who just put it in the context of an MMO in general say that it's a very solid MMO. It's a pretty good game. So I'm looking forward to seeing for it myself.
As am I, sir. So we will find out release dates at the end of the month. All right, let's do some viewer questions, but really quick, I want to tell you guys about a great deal we got going on with another one of our sponsors that I love so much. It is Shutterstock. If you guys do not know about Shutterstock, if you have a website or a project, maybe a video editing project, maybe a presentation, maybe you need a logo, you have to go to Shutterstock. It's like Gamebreaker's secret weapon. I keep calling it the secret weapon because it really, truly is our secret weapon. Because if you don't use something like a Shutterstock, you got to hire like an artist, and who's got the money for that? Nobody. time or money. It's too expensive. What do? You go to Shutterstock, you sign up, you make a brand new account. And if you use GameBreaker5 as the checkout there and the promo code, use GameBreaker5, you're going to get 30% off your account. Now, what is Shutterstock if you haven't checked it out? It's all kinds of just great artwork, logos, vectors, stock photography, videos, and check this out. So we may be launching a new website, maybe within the next 24 to 48 hours.
I hear somebody screaming in the background as you say.
I know, they're screaming at me. They're like, why are you saying that? But here's a little sneak peek. Actually, where's, hang on, let me find it. I'm going to pull up, we actually have a Facebook page already in anticipation for the new website. The website is not live yet, but here is the Facebook page. If you guys want to go like it, it's facebook.com/free2playtv. Free2playtv. Yeah, see this, we did this little modifier to our current logo here. So we got the Game Breaker logo, but we needed a modifier for the new site, right? We wanted you guys to know that this was a Game Breaker site, but we wanted it to feel a bit different. And we loved this little guy here with the little suit on and the cape, kind of like, you know. And oh, look at that. Look at that over on Shutterstock.com. Yes, that's where we got our logo from. So I've been using Shutterstock for years and years and years on all the sites, all our little icons, all our little buttons, background artwork, photography, all kinds of stuff. All the way back to one of the first websites I ever launched, Gax Online, used tons of Shutterstock stuff. So go on over, take your project to the next level. Just make a new account, use promo code GameBreaker5 on the checkout, and you're going to get 30% off on your account. I don't know how long this deal is going to last. I really don't, because that is a huge discount. I think it's the largest discount Shutterstock has ever offered, ever. So I can't guarantee it's going to be around forever. Go check it out and sign up for Shutterstock today. Let's do some viewer questions. So if you guys have viewer questions for this week in MMO, you can send them to submit@gamebreaker.tv, submit@gamebreaker.tv, or keep an eye on our Facebook page. We ask for them there as well. And video questions. We love video questions. So if you guys have a video question, record yourself, post it up on YouTube, and send us a link. Email us the link, and we'll play it on the show. First up from Nicholas Garduno. Says, what do you guys think of Rift pushing the sale of 1-year subscriptions with Storm Legion while knowing they would be going free-to-play before the year was up? Now, I'm going to start... I'm going to say, first of all, seriously, how would they know that they were going to go free to play? I mean, there's no real... I don't know if they had that really, in writing as far as, like, we know we are going to go free to play within the year. I don't know if that's true.
They've said they've been working on it for quite a while. Because one of the things that people says is, why have you done now? Like, have you done it quick because, you're in trouble? They said, no, we've been working on this for quite a while. We've been... So it's not like this is something that's just happened.
Okay, but no. I'm not saying it just happened, but I'll throw out a guess there and say that they've probably been working on free-to-play before they launched. Like, it was, like, seriously, like, they probably had it in the works before they even launched. I think they always probably know that that's the way the industry.
It's been an option, yeah. Let's face it, most companies, when they're doing this sort of design, it's one of the options that's kind of discussed, and there's going to be a design document put together on how it would work. And
I think the wake of it, I don't think Storm Legion did as well as they had hoped. Which I really do think it was a fantastic expansion. There was so much content in it, but I don't think it did as well as they were going to. And I think that response was probably, in a direct relation of where that timeline was going to land. So I think, when Storm Legion came out and they were probably, pushing the sale of the 1-year subscription, I don't know if they really knew exactly how many months out it would be before they went free to play. I'm sure they were all aware that at some point they would be going free to play and all the systems were in place and the shop and everything was being developed.
I mean, completely speculation. They might have thought, right, if the 1-year subscription goes really well, that we might not do free to play for another year.
Right, exactly. Right. That's my point.
That's perfectly logical that was an option that was on the table, but how things happen there would depend on it. And
I don't think there's some sort of conspiracy theory here. Though,
no, I don't think they're going, quick, let's shove this out the door and just don't say anything. They're going to be really surprised when they find out. I don't think it was that at all.
I don't know if you know about this. I could have swore that we saw something that they were going to, we just talked a little bit about the veteran stuff. Was there any other information that came out about them treating how they were treating subs? Like,
yeah, patrons. Let me just do this. So, like, if you're a patron, which is mean you're a sub. First off, you get and if you're you get. Let me just see. You get extra 15% extra currency. You get bonus experience, bonus tokens like Marks of Ascension, things like that. Instant access to your bank trainer, faster mount speed, favor and prestige, loyalty. You get loyalty bonus, which the more you play, you unlock certain bonuses. So you get that, and you get PVE rep gain increases. Yeah, and then you get also. Sorry, I'm a little bit discombobulated. It's Sunday, but you get. Let me see. That people paying for the game will get a 10%. They're working on giving them a 10% discount on the cash shop as well. And so there's a bunch of stuff. And people who have a year of game time left, like on their account, I think they get $5 per month in like in-game stuff. So like if you've got a year left, you'll get $60 worth of. I said bucks. Look at me, I'm all American. You get $60 worth of stuff in-game to use. So
that sounds pretty reasonable. I mean, this sounds. We'll dissect this, I think, on a future show. But I think they're taking care of the people, who have. Subscription.
It's not kind of like dollar for dollar 1-to-1 ratio.
Sure.
But you're certainly going to get something. It's not like and the other thing is, and this, I don't want to make this sound facetious because I understand why some people would be annoyed by this. I do understand. But you're still going to get the game. You're still going to be playing that game. And you're going to get bonuses that the people who have not had that subscription that you have, you're going to have bonuses that they won't. So you're going to be able to play the game, carry on playing the game, you're going to have all the access that you wanted, plus you're going to get bonuses and stuff that other people won't get. So I understand some people being perturbed. I understand, but they're going to be taken care of, and they're going to end up coming out of it with stuff that other people won't get. And I do not think that this is a conspiracy of them going, right, let's take their money now, and they'll never see us again. I
agree. All right, next up from Robert D. Wild. He says, am I the only one that is more excited for WildStar than any other MMO currently being developed? Or do some of you guys share that excitement? I think after today's show, I think it's pretty safe to say we both share that excitement. I think they're doing some really great things. And the more information that starts coming out about mechanics, I'm getting more and more excited for it, that we may or may not be doing a WildStar show.
WildStar Wink. God, my eye. WildStar's been like one of my top three for a while now. Like my top 3 games this year that I'm really looking forward to. It's actually shifted in its position now. But it's still, it looks great. The more I hear of it, I just want to play it. There's been like half a dozen times where I've had the chance to play it, and I haven't been able to go. And so I've sent one of my wonderful people who works at ZAM to go in my stead, and they come back all smiles and beaming, and I love the game, and it's great. And I'm there going, I'm really glad you had a great time. Thanks for all the great content, and I didn't get to play.
Last up this week from Justin Onofre. It says, with Final Fantasy XIV 2.0 on the horizon, is the Game Breaker team looking forward to it all, or has 1.0 left too much of a bad impression? I think many people know that it left quite a bad impression in my mouth, but I think it left a pretty bad impression in every gamer who ever played its mouth. I am an optimist. I am looking forward to it. I've been hearing some very good things, like we just talked about at the last end of the break there. So. Yeah, I think I'm a little bit more on the side of like they've got a lot to prove. They've got to really win me over, But I'm absolutely curious and can't wait to get my hands on it and really see what they've done over the past year to 2 years.
I think what most people don't get, like with us being in the industry within, we're always rooting for a good game to come out. Like we don't want a series of really shoddy games to land, because A, we're gamers and we like there to be good games, and B, we like to write about good games and we like to cover good games and get enthusiastic for it. So, yeah, I want Final Fantasy XIV to be good, because if it's not, then why would I want it not, or why would I want it to be bad? There's no reason to want it to be bad. And from what I've heard, it's a huge improvement, a vast improvement on 1.0.
Scott Hawks, editor-in-chief at Zam.com. Go over to Zam.com and follow Scott on Twitter at Jaramore. That's Jarimor. Jaramore on the Twitters. You can follow me at Gary Gannon and follow Gamebreaker TV. And we have a brand new site launching this week, so pay attention to that. We'll be posting it all over the place on the Twitters, the Facebooks, all that good stuff. And we usually do This Week in MMO on Fridays at 3 PST. Probably not so much for the next week, but the week after that, we will definitely probably be back on schedule. So come on over for the live show. Thanks so much for watching. I'd say have a great weekend, but the weekend is pretty much over while we're recording this. So here's to the start of the week. We'll see you this week. Thanks for watching.